Hello, my name is Elizabeth Ferty and I'm joined today by State Street's Head of International, Cuan Coulter, and James Redgrave, who is Vice President of Global Thought Leadership at State Street too. And we're here to talk about the 4th annual State Street Private Market Survey. And this year, the Private Market Survey has spoken to nearly 500 institutional investors, including asset owners, asset managers, and a whole array of assets and capital market allocators, to talk about their themes and their ideas and what trends are going on in private markets. It is a huge survey, and it's also available on statestreet.com if you want to have a dig into it after you've watched us on this video. But first of all, James, I want to come to you and ask you, what are the key global themes that have appeared in the private market survey this year, and what's really piqued your interest?
Thanks, Liz. So one of the most important themes that's come through in this year's survey is a real flight to quality in private markets investments. So we've seen a sort of slowdown in the rate of growth. People are still increasing their allocations, but the rate at which they're doing so has slowed down. And in relation to that, we've seen a real increase in focus on due diligence and risk assessment at the portfolio and the individual holding level as people are seeking quality over quantity. Also, we've seen a flight from developing markets to developed. So developed Europe in particular has seen a significant increase in planned allocation growth across the board, and that's largely been at the expense of developing Europe and developing APAC. So that's one big theme. Another big theme is democratization and the growth of semi-liquid and retail-style funds. And more than half now of our respondents expect at least half of flows into private markets to come through that type of vehicle now over the next couple of years.
Great. There's a lot going on, Cuan. So how does State Street support its clients when there's quite a bit of change going on, and given everything that's going on out there as well? So what's State Street been doing?
I guess I'll echo a lot of what James was saying based on what's happening in the field. So at State Street, we have the privilege of managing or administering close to $3 trillion worth of private market assets. And as both a global service provider and an asset manager, we get to see the entire value chain, if you will, the sort of life cycle of a private fund. So we're potentially uniquely positioned to sort of understand what's going on at the grassroots level of private assets. I guess the observations that I would highlight that I think echo some of what is coming through in the survey is that the conditions for private markets are likely to continue to be uneven for the foreseeable future. Some of that is geopolitical, some of that is market specific, but James referenced the fact that it's a quality over quantity game, and I think that's true. The other observation I would make is there continues to be growing interest in private markets in general, and there's, if you will, confidence that in aggregate terms, private markets continues to be a place that will be a resilient investment option for clients.
And are you seeing a split? We keep hearing a lot about the retail investor and the non-institutional investor, I think is probably fair to say. Are you seeing the interest coming through from retail investors? And if so, how are asset management clients, I suppose, working and creating products for them, and how are you supporting them to do that?
You're right, Liz. A lot of product innovation in the marketplace involves democratization in some way, shape or form. We're starting to see growing momentum. Like here in the UK, you have the LTIF product, and in Europe, you have the LTIF, which are all attempts at being able to get retail investors into the asset class, given the return streams that have historically been found in private markets. I think James referenced this already, but I think something like 50% of the survey respondents feel like that's the sort of the next 2 years' worth of product innovation for private markets. Another place I might highlight is the Middle East. Our client base in the Middle East is typified by asset owners, and I would say asset owners have an unprecedented appetite for private markets. Some of that comes from the investment thesis. Some of that comes from the fact that some of these asset owners have also kind of national interest priorities, and sub-asset classes like infrastructure are particularly appealing to them. And
how about APAC? Because obviously that's a big opportunity, lots of different investors over there. Where are they looking? What asset classes are they looking for?
I'd say in APAC, the top choices for investors are private equity and private credit.
So, James, let's come back to what your data is showing from the survey. And these trends, data quality and retail style distribution, needs asset managers and asset owners to really kind of look at their operations and see what's going on under the hood. So what have you heard from the data? What does the survey show? How they're preparing for this, a trend which continues to build?
Yeah, to Cuan's point earlier, democratization is a big driver of product innovation, and data management and data analysis is a huge part of that in private markets. As we know, one of the problems there is the creation of more sort of structured, repeatable data out of unstructured information, which comes in more sort of text-based or document-based forms. The industry has had problems with this for a long time. One of the questions we asked was to what extent they see emerging technologies, particularly generative AI, large language models, as a sort of facilitator of improvement here. And we found that more than 80% of our respondents are actively exploring use cases, and the range of use cases is really quite broad, from whole of portfolio sort of performance analysis to individual holding performance to asset class specific things like credit spreads in private credit. There really is sort of a wide range of technology use cases which is driving product innovation in this space.
Great. There's so much going on, and it does seem that innovation is only going to be held back by the support frameworks and networks. So Cuan, coming back to you, how is State Street supporting clients to navigate these trends that are kind of, it seems like everything's happening quickly and no one's got any time to wait. So what are you doing?
So in many ways, we're doing similar things to what we do in the institutional space and in the listed space, specifically our core product services around fund administration, the front office solutions that we have, in particular Charles River for private markets, our Alpha Data platform, which is our front-to-back data aggregation, synthesization, and delivery mechanism across front, middle, and back also applies in the private market space. And then the financing solutions, if you will, or liquidity solutions that we have also apply. But what's novel or what's potentially idiosyncratic harks back to what James was talking about. You know, one of the big challenges that has to be overcome in this asset class is the lack of sort of digitization of the data. So our most valuable services to private market clients involve data extraction, data normalization tools across all of their holdings. The ultimate objective for either asset owners or asset managers is to be able to have a whole portfolio view. So regardless of whether you've got public listed securities or whether you've got private assets, you should be able to see them across your entire complex. And we work hard to make sure that clients can get that holistic perspective to their portfolios.
So guys, it sounds like there's a lot to be getting on with. State Street's got a lot to support because there's an awful lot happening in private markets and investors don't seem like they want to wait. So thank you very much for joining me to dig into some of this. As I say, if you want to find out any more, the survey is online, statestreet.com. And thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully see you next year for the 5th annual Private Market Survey by State Street.